Welcome to the Farrell Sports Business Podcast, where I interview leaders in the sports industry about their jobs, trends in their industry, and about their own personal career path. I'm the host, Matt Farrell. In past episodes, we've talked about getting jobs at the Super Bowl and a lot of times talking about executive recruiter and director and VP level jobs. We're going to go to the other side this time and talk about what it's like entering the sports business market as a recent grad or even a student, and what services are out there to help people early on in their career path chasing the dream of looking for a job in sports. It's stressful, it's high anxiety, and both students and their parents are looking for what's next. This week's episode is a really insightful conversation with the CEO and president of a company that is actually designed to help students and recent grads find their next job. We're obviously going to have a little bit of a spin on the sports industry with it, but it's a white glove type treatment. She's an author, she's a speaker, and she's the president of Next Great Step, Beth Hendler-Grunt. Well, we've got so many things. We met on TikTok, which we're absolutely going to get into because I just love talking about TikTok. But how about a little bit of background of Next Great Step?
I'm the founder and CEO of Next Great Step, and our sole focus is to help college students and recent grads land that internship or that first job after college. And I launched it 10 years ago, and it came about really because I was working with actually in the consulting world, helping lots of executives be successful in creating a strategy and compete. And they would always say to me, I'd love to hire someone who just came out of school, but I'm going to pass on that because I don't have time to babysit. They don't understand our challenges, and I need someone with more experience. And I also became of the age where I had lots of friends with kids saying, I don't get it. My kid went to a great school. They have great internships, and they cannot get a job. And I literally started in my basement with a lot of my friends' kids, teaching them more of a strategy about how to navigate the process. And they all said, hey, you know what? I'm not getting this at school, or this is really helping me. And it's kind of how it started. And now, we're 10 years in, and we've worked with thousands of young adults to help them launch. And I'm really proud of that. Over 80 to 90% of them actually get the job that they want.
I want to come back to that number as well, but personal experience about 4 years ago was during the pandemic. I thought I wanted to start my own business, and you're going to go through this wishy-washy period, and then there's always a tipping point of when you make the leap of like, yeah, this is going to work. Let's go.
Yeah.
What was that for you, or was there a moment like that?
Yeah, it's funny, and this is more of like being someone who's an entrepreneur in a startup. So I'd always worked for big companies prior, and then I worked for a more boutique consulting firm. And then out on my own as an entrepreneur, I was working at this probably for almost a year until I got my first client. So one of the tipping points, people would say, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you not, I was a vice president and director in different big companies. And it was only when I finally got that first client, maybe that was my tipping point of like, all right, we can do this. There's something here. And then when it just started to take off, one person would tell another, or just the fact that the kids kept getting jobs. And I am not a career coach by trade. I'm not a recruiter by trade, but I do know how to coach others. I also know how to sell, and I know how to teach others how to sell themselves. And I think once I started seeing all that success and that they were having success in doing it, I'm like, wow, we got something here. And there's a need. There's a huge, that's also in terms of as an entrepreneur, you're always looking, what's the problem that you can solve? And this is a huge problem. And I will say it was always a big problem pre-pandemic, but post-pandemic, I feel terrible. I mean, our kids were significantly impacted. They missed so much of a typical experience of even just talking to people, being in front of somebody face to face, just learning how to forge a relationship and communicate in a way that expresses value, it's even more critical now. So we've seen a huge jump in the need for our business and our services because we're really helping kids not only figure out their path, but just helping them feel confident and helping them feel like they have a direction because the pandemic really messed up a lot of people.
Absolutely. A lot of change in my life and my family, and so I totally get it and relate.
Yeah.
So, but your corporate background or consulting background, what were some of the building blocks along the way that just fell into place that you said, yeah, this is the right time for this business for me and for Next Great Step?
Yeah, I mean, on a, I think I had already put in about 15 years in like corporate, companies like AT&T and T and Lucent Technologies and Avaya. And then I was with a consulting firm for about another 10 years. And I was just ready to not work for somebody else. I was ready to not be on someone else's demands or time frame. Although, of course, I'm probably working more hours now and putting, there's
I get
no,
it.
you don't know when the day ends. I keep going, right? But I do feel that I was just ready to be accountable to myself and also challenge myself to see if I could do it. And so that was kind of that was really the main shift. And I saw that there was this huge problem. And there still aren't a lot of people solving for it. And I tried a lot of, excuse me, I tried a lot of different ways too. By the way, you have to fail a lot before you get something that works. And I thought initially, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go to all the universities and help supplement their career services, or they're going to hire me to help them, better create a structure for their program. And the truth is that a lot of universities are not interested. Career services is not a revenue generating function in a lot of schools. It's also not required for accreditation to graduate. So when you have a combination of people think either they have it under control or they don't care if it's not that great, because sometimes a lot of schools just think their goal is to educate, is not to get a job. Now, yes, you're hearing more shifts about that, but there's some very much ingrained philosophy in, education and university settings about how to move forward. And I probably spoke and presented at almost every school in New Jersey, which is where I'm from, some New York schools, but they also don't really want to pay you for it either. They just think they have it under control. And I saw what was happening even in the tutoring market where parents, pay a lot of money or just, for SAT, ACT, college advising. I said, you know what? I think people not only need help getting into school, they need help getting out. And that I really just started targeting parents and families. And that's, what has really worked for us.
That's a great way to say it. You think about getting in and how do you get out? There's a lot of your materials that, I come from, a marketing side and slant of life. And so I read your materials, I read your posts on LinkedIn, and they seem very intentional. And I mean this very, very positively, of kind of what you are, next great step, and in some cases, what you aren't. It's not a 1 hour consultation. I would almost consider it a little white glove type service,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
how would you describe what next great step is?
Yeah. Great question. And it's so funny. It's evolved, right? Even as someone who started this business, I kind of thought it was going to be one way. But what we are is we really do two things. We help young adults figure out what skills they have that they can bring to the market. And then once they figure that out, we help them determine, well, who do you want to bring those skills to? And how do you articulate your value in doing that? So you actually get to pick. It's not about just what's on a job board. And I think as part of that, we're helping young adults feel confident in this process. And we're taking a process that's very overwhelming, unstructured, right? Kids were in a structure from kindergarten through end of college for 16 years with a syllabus. And now all of a sudden you're thrown into this job market and it's like, you don't know where to start first. And they think it's, one way or another. And we are doing is giving a really simple, structured, step-by-step approach that helps young adults not only figure out what they want to be doing, but how to be the one chosen. And we're all outcome focused. So that's why we determined you can't hire us for 1 hour because I can't teach a young adult what they need to know in 1 hour. It's over, a couple of months of maybe 2 to 3 months of, we're started with 6 sessions and then we went to 8 and now we're realizing you might need 12. Like, but I'm all about the outcome because if you just, I feel like it's just like poking the elephant, right? You can take an hour with someone or get your resume fixed. That's great. But that doesn't give your entire brand, and you as a marketing person understand this. You need to create this brand for yourself and you need to represent and show that in every way you communicate through your cover letter, your follow-up letter, your resume, your LinkedIn, what you say in the interview. You need to be really consistent in how you share the skills that you have to offer. And I think that's what we're helping our young adults do, which is why it's a program. And it's just like another class that you take at college. Just we're not grading you, but we're here to really guide you through the process.
So I want to come back to that 80 to 90% success rate number because
Mhm.
I find that phenomenal, mainly because you're probably getting clients with a range of ability levels. And to have that type of a success rate, what does that look like and what does that mean? Is like, I want an internship with the New York Mets. Or I want an internship in baseball. Those are two very, very different things. So how do you achieve that? Because it's really impressive.
You and following your videos because I had a nickel for every hurt kid who comes to me and says, I really want to work in sports because I love sports. I'm like, well, that's great. But loving sports does not get you a job in sports. And I think what so often people see like the shiny object, right? You see, oh, this looks amazing, or on social media, and what we say is kind of like take a step back, even forget what your parents told you to do or what your friends are doing. What we are really honing in with our young adults is let's focus on what are the skills that you have. What are the talents? Now, a lot of young adults say, I don't know, I didn't do anything, or I only went to class. What do you do? You do, right? Either you're great at, are you in a group project? Are you the leader? Or are you maybe the one operationalizing or organizing everyone, right? There's some kind of role that you gravitate to that you know that you're good at and you've done that. And I think that's one of the first pieces is we help pull that out. Because once we can help a young adult figure out not only what skills you have, but what's the story behind it. So if you tell me you are a great writer, awesome, everybody writes papers, but I need an example of that. Well, maybe you wrote for the school newspaper 3 times a week. Maybe you're great at interviewing people and synthesizing a large volume of information and make it concise. So when they start to understand how they actually have something to offer and a skill and a story to back it up, all of a sudden we say, well, let's think about what are those companies or organizations that need those skills. So long way saying, if you want to work for Major League Baseball, maybe you want to be a writer. Maybe you want to be a sports writer. Maybe you need to understand what does it take to be in the writing field, right? You weren't thinking of that. You were just thinking, we want you to be more specific. And I think that's what we help them do is figure out what are your talents and how do you line that up with what an organization needs. And what I'm always teaching them too is, by the way, sports is a business. And as much as you love watching it and going to it, they're all about making money. And what can you do to help them, sports, any team, make money? And by the way, same goes for entertainment, same goes for film, music, even though it seems very, you don't always think of that, but everything has an objective or a goal, right? It's either money and gain more clients, improve customer service, sell more tickets, whatever it is. And we're trying to have them think big of how can you take your skills and really line them up with what that organization needs to help them be successful. And that's what makes somebody want to hire you, not your love of sports.
I knew we were going to be fast friends. What she said. So in that same vein, when you're working with a student or a recent grad, and I say this of all, we all have strengths and weaknesses. There has to be a little bit of a tough love aspect to some of this, of calling out where I'm weaker and say, Matt, we need to work on this area. How do you do that? Because some people are receptive to that type of constructive feedback and some aren't. How do you go about it?
Yeah, good question. I mean, a lot of that starts with our vetting process before we even take a client on, because very often, keep in mind, I have two clients. I have parents who are worried, stressed, and overwhelmed that their kid is going to be on their payroll forever, and who usually, start the process saying, "Can you help my kid?" Because they don't want to listen to me. And by the way, I get it. I have two kids that are 22, 25, both in their last year of undergrad and grad school, so I get it. Doesn't matter if mom is the expert; they don't always want to listen to me. And then we need to think about also, do they want this, right? I tell every student, don't come work with us or don't work with any coach or anything. Don't do this if you think you got it figured out or you haven't suffered enough pain, right? If you feel like you still want to go see what it's like to apply to like 100 or 200 jobs and wait on that, oh, great, like go for it. But don't come to us if you feel like you've got it all figured out. And a lot of that's part of the vetting process. But even though, yes, we still have students who come to us and say, well, I really want this. Right. We press them, say, okay, well, what are you doing to, what's your background? What did you study? Or what have you done to develop skills? And we're not saying it's impossible, but I think the part that helps them, I don't even have to say it to them. What we're doing is we're teaching them how to strategically network with people who have the job that they want. Doesn't have to be the vice president. It could be someone, my favorite people for students to network with is someone who went to the same school as you and had the same major, and you can figure that out easily on LinkedIn, and talk to this person, have a 10-minute conversation. How did you get there? What did you need to do? What are the main skills that you're using now? And you're going to learn very quickly whether you like what they have to say, right? Everyone says, oh, I want to work for like the NBA. I mean, I have other people said, it's a grind. Any kind of sport, like it can be a grind, right? You've taught that in your videos. You're traveling. You don't have control. You may not get paid a lot of money. You might start in ticket sales. You got to figure out by talking to real people, not in your head and not just looking at social media and not looking at, you have to have conversations with people who are doing the job that you're thinking about. And that starts to help young adults get clarity because you're like, wow, I like what they had to say. I want to learn more. Or, oof, it's not what I thought it was going to be. And maybe that's not the direction I want to head in. So I'm not telling them, I'm just helping facilitate the process of how they can get smarter about what they might want to do, and then we make decisions, together, as opposed to, I never will say, go do this. That's not our job. Our job is to give you the tools to help you figure it out.
So you mentioned parents as well, and I'm fascinated by this because even on my TikTok, I find a lot of parents
Yes.
following. And so, how or has the role of parents changed with students and recent grads now compared to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or whatever?
Question. One of these parents, by the way, I have kids this age. I think a couple things have happened. So, look, parents have always been interested, concerned, wanting to help, but we've also had a major shift in the job market. So we went from a pretty strong job market in, let's say, 2018, 2019. We had the pandemic where things like kind of flattened a little bit, and then it went nuts. In 2021 and 2022, there were two jobs for every applicant. Think about that. So you had two jobs to pick from for every applicant. There were like 8 million open jobs, or 10 million open jobs and 8 million job seekers, something. But now, just I'll say specific to 2024, there is one job for two applicants, right? So you're now really competing. The job market has gotten so much tighter. I think it's just mostly right sizing itself back to where it was in 2019. So that big growth and tech and other consulting, other places, it's just coming back down. And I'll just say specific to this year, last year or two, it is competitive. It is very competitive. And it's also very expensive for a young adult to be able to even be independently financially stable on their own. So moving to an apartment or in a big city. So parents, understandably, again, I'll speak for are worried. Like not only are there fewer jobs, it's more competitive, it's more expensive to live independently. And yeah, they're worried. I mean, they're worried about, am I delaying my own retirement to support my kid. I mean, there's a lot of kids even post pandemics that are still living at home because they just can't afford to move out. So we have all these economic factors. We have also kids who significantly impacted by mental health. I mean, over 30 to 40% of young adults now have diagnosable anxiety or depression, and we cannot, overlook that. We have this, so we have all these factors of a tough economy, tough mental health, tough job market, and yeah, they're like, this is not what it was when they graduated college. I'll speak for myself. It's not like what it was when I graduated college, and I do see that worry. Sometimes it's a little bit too intense. Everybody needs to like take a breath. But yeah, everybody's kind of concerned right now.
Yeah, my wife and I were having a similar conversation, and this is a topic for another day. But
Yeah.
my daughters are 25 and 21, and just think for a second what the people of that age have lived through. I mean,
Yeah.
the early side of 9/11 and
Mm-hmm.
school shootings and
Mm-hmm.
the most hateful political environment ever, and then pandemic, and you kind of step back and you're like, wow, that they're dealing with a lot.
We literally have the same conversation too. Like, I didn't have that same feeling. First of all, there was no social media, there was no phones. I mean, there's
Yeah,
like a blissful ignorance that we got to experience. I'll say, in our age group, that we didn't always know what was going on per se. But yeah, I feel for young adults. It's definitely a very heavy time frame. There's a lot weighing on them for a lot of
yeah.
different angles.
Well, I want to transition on, the search process itself, and I think there's something where you and I have had similar content on this, but it's this notion of I've gone to job site, I've hit submit, I'm done, and this false sense of progress.
Yeah.
Wh- what's your take on that, and what do you talk to students about?
Yeah. We have a graphic that grew up with a device in their hand. And this device, the phone, gives you a lot of things instantly, right? There's this expectation that things will happen quickly. And if I just use the technology, so the same thing when you're on LinkedIn and it says easy apply or Indeed or Glassdoor, pick your site, it looks very easy. Like, great, I'm going to fill out the application once and I'm going to submit it 100 or 200 times. But that is not the metric that young adults should be measuring. And that's the problem. They're falling down under this false pretense that one, that more is better, more is not better. And that two, they think if I just have the right keywords or I just meet the algorithm where it is, it's going to find me. It's going to find me, and that person's going to find me for that perfect job. And I'm just going to sit back and wait, and I'm going to have to, fight off all the job offers. And that is not the case. That's not the case. The technology is misleading. And what I tell my clients, I said, you're measuring the wrong thing. You should not be measuring how many jobs you're applying to. I'm kind of in the mode of like, I barely want you to apply. I want you to measure how many people are you talking to that are doing the job that you want, or in the company that you aspire to get into. It has nothing to do if there's a job posting or not. If you're telling me that you want to work in data analytics for the NBA and there's no postings right now, you need to go through start with your alumni. I feel like that's the easiest. People are most friendly. You went to the same school. See who went to your school and maybe works there. And by the way, and if not, find someone who graduated in the last 3 to 5 years who's doing a data analytic role at the NBA. And look on LinkedIn. It's the biggest free database you can access. Doesn't matter whether you went to the same school. You reach out to them saying, I'm really impressed with the role that you're taking on there. I'd love to learn more about it. I appreciate connecting. You just got to get them to connect and then get their email. And then, would you be willing to spend 10, 15 minutes with me so I can just learn a little bit more? I appreciate it. Like just that reaching out, showing that you've read their profile, you've taken interest, you're not just you're not spamming them with a random message. And when you have these conversations, we actually teach them that there's a framework that we teach called the 3 A's. And I'll tell you briefly, the 3 A's before you have a meeting with everyone is the first A is action. If the meeting goes exactly as you want, what do you want that person to do on your behalf that'll push you further in the process? And if they're going to take an action, what's the attitude you want them to have about you? What do you want them to believe about you? These are the skills that you have. And lastly, what are the answers you need? Meaning, what questions do you want to ask that you can't find the answer to on the internet that only this person could answer? Like, how do you measure success? What are the qualities that you look for when you're hiring for someone in this business? And when you have a meeting and you've planned out those 3 A's and you're organized and structured, not only is it going to go well, they're going to be so impressed that you came prepared, presented yourself, and there's no job opening right now. Well, guess who the first person they're going to call when there is an opening? Because it's the hidden job market. There's thousands and thousands of jobs that never get posted. I just hired somebody for my company. I didn't put it on LinkedIn or Indeed. I don't have time for that as a business owner. I reached out to my network of saying, this is what I'm looking for. Does anyone know anyone? And sure enough, someone said, you know what? I know a couple people, and I just brought somebody on, and it was never out in the universe. No one knew it was there.
I'm just only laughing because I'm the exact same. I live in Colorado Springs.
Yep.
University of Colorado, Colorado Springs is here. I love their students, hire them all the time. And they'll do a career fair and they'll come up and like, oh, so when are you going to post your internship? I said, I'm not. And I'm actually interviewing right there. And who has time to, it's sad, but it's true. And it's just the way it works. So. Okay, I have to ask you about TikTok. You're, I think it's also fair to say we both came to TikTok later in life, later in professional career. What do you like about it? How does it fit into your business? And just would love your take.
And so TikTok, so I'm on every social channel and I've been pretty, I guess coming from a tech background, I feel like I'm pretty technically savvy. I shared early on, I always hire interns. They're usually college age. And I had an intern who said, you should really try TikTok. And she was the one who started to teach me how to use it. And we had one or two videos that kind of hit. She kind of showed me how to use it. And then I had one video where I literally took Post-it note and I put it behind my camera and I showed people how I'd write notes on it. I'm like, this is the best hack for any kind of video interview. And that went viral, like 2 million views. I was like, oh, wow, maybe I should do something with this. And then I started also following creators. So I'm always a person of, if I'm on a platform, I want to learn how to optimize it. So I follow a lot of people who teach you how to kind of create your content. So when you do that, you need to, people comment, you need to comment back. You need to make sure if they've asked a question, you do it with a video response, becomes another video. So I just started learning how to do it. And it's kind of been an interesting, sometimes fun thing, sometimes very frustrating because like everything else, TikTok is also a business and it needs to make money, right? It doesn't make money from me per se, it gives me a little incentive with the creator fund. It's barely any money, so it incents people to create more content. But of course, their big money maker is through ads and advertising and now TikTok Shop. So where I'm at conflict with TikTok is that I'm not going to represent something for TikTok Shop. That's not my business. I have my own services. We're very professional, high level, kind of concierge type support. So I'm not going to, like as I said earlier, I'm not going to, sell like a pen or a portfolio. That's not how I represent it. I'm here to add value. And if I'm able to add value and you think you want to learn more and come to one of our webinars or go to my website, like that's, what I'm going. So to me, but every channel is different. So if I create a piece of content for TikTok, it has to be different than what I create for Instagram and what I create for LinkedIn. And so it's time, it's all as I say, it's just like you have to feed the monster because it keeps wanting something different and algorithm. So I try to keep up with all of it, but I don't let it run my life. I have a business to run. I'm a CEO of a business that has hundreds of clients and many coaches and teams and parents and families. and I have to, balance that within. So it's always a balance. Sometimes I feel like I got to get into it and do it more. And sometimes like I just don't have time, and it is what it is.
Oh, I love it. TikTok is a life suck. I started it as a lark and then thought it was going to give me some credibility at the dinner table with my, then 20 something daughters. And it's just an eye roller, now for
Yeah.
them. But, so I'm going to put like links to your site and
Okay.
handles in the show notes, but
Okay.
I can't imagine people listening to this, especially if they're in this situation of student or parent, that would want to investigate you and your services. What should people do? It's kind of a shameless plug opportunity, Beth, for Next Great Step.
Sure. Two ways. So if you want to learn more, we'd love the opportunity to speak with you via a complimentary consultation. There's no pressure, no fee. On the top of my website, it's www.nextgreatstep.com. There's a button that says Let's Talk. And either we can talk to you as a parent, a student, we can talk to you both together if you're interested in learning more about how to navigate landing the internship or the first job. The other way that you can learn more is you can get our Amazon #1 best-selling book, The Next Great Step, the parent's guide to launching your new grad into a career. Even though it says parent's guide, it's really for parents and also to work with their young adult. We are actually sharing two parts to it as we talk about the perspective of what parents thought would happen, what students thought would happen, and what employers are expecting in terms of the job search. And then we actually share our step-by-step approach. So if you are a parent or a mentor or family member and you want to work with a young adult in your life to help them navigate this process, we are laying that out in our book as well. And you can get that on Amazon. And as Matt said, we are on every social channel. We do a lot. And we also have a YouTube channel as well. We've been on NBC and Wall Street Journal, New York Times. So you can, anything Next Great Step, you can check us out. I try to keep very consistent about our messaging and what we can offer and really offering value to families.
Oh, it's an incredible conversation and long overdue for us to lead virtually face to face. But Beth, I love what you're doing and love your TikToks. And so thanks so much for joining. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.